Welcome to Roaming Minds.
We talk about the logic behind thinking and why it stops working the way you expected it to.
This season will follow one primary question. What happens when you do the thing that was supposed to make the thinking stop, but it just kept looping?
You wrote it down, you told someone, you put it on your calendar. Sometimes doing that works. Sometimes it just moves it somewhere else that still requires your attention.
We will explore this alongside expert guests this season in addition to our usual format. I'm AJ.
And I'm Carlos. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Roaming Minds.
We talk about the logic behind thinking and why it stops working the way you expected it to.
This season will follow one primary question. What happens when you do the thing that was supposed to make the thinking stop, but it just kept looping?
You wrote it down, you told someone, you put it on your calendar. Sometimes doing that works. Sometimes it just moves it somewhere else that still requires your attention.
We will explore this alongside expert guests this season in addition to our usual format. I'm AJ.
And I'm Carlos. Let's get into it. Thank you so much. That's the episode.
If something is still ruminating, that's the specific thing one Enactive session is built for. The session link is at theenactive.com.
If it was worth your time, subscribe. New episode every week for this season.
And there is a question waiting for you in the comments. Answer it if you feel so inclined.
We read them.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. What's
Interesting.
on your mind, muchacho?
A lot, but nothing that's actually related to what we're supposed to be talking about. No. No, I mean that's not.
That's not always true. We always find
Yeah.
there's always an underlying theme that somehow you go halfway through, you go, damn, well, that's just two crazy people talking about themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm good at that. No. No, I like the question behind this season. I like it. I don't know if it's high level enough for us, and it might evolve over the course of the season, but that's okay. I'm not really mad about it. But when I was thinking about it, I was last season, we talked about a lot of the externals, and this season's a little more internal. And I feel like it's pretty, most of us have had that experience where I did something to get whatever thought was out of my head. I don't care what it was. It didn't matter, but it didn't go away. And it's interesting and it's frustrating because you're like, well, I just want to be done with this. I don't want to think about this. I don't want to worry about this. I don't want to do anything with this. I just want to move on with my life. And I don't think that that's I don't think it's a frustrating thing. No, never mind. I forget I said that. I don't know about you, but I have tried many different tactics to try and find out something. I used to have a massive 2 foot by 1.5 foot, and maybe it was bigger than that. It might have been 3 feet. Whiteboard that was literally attached to my desk. And amazingly enough, I could ignore it. That thing.
Really. And I think that is a universal experience. You start with, you recognize that there's a problem, whatever, you need to organize yourself. So you download an app, you buy the notebook, you whatever it is that you do. I've seen people do the Post-it, and then slowly you kind of abandon the routine. After a while, you can just kind of go. And I'm actually guilty of this because right now, actually going to my room, when I started school last year, I bought a notebook. I told myself I'm going to write in every single day. Probably I've wrote on 3 pages of that notebook. And then after a while, I just kind of, not even I did it intentionally. I just kind of phase out because we are creatures of habits. And sometimes if it's not something that's really ingrained in you, certain patterns, trying to add new pattern, not that it doesn't work. You really need strict discipline and consistency with it in order to really make it stick and make it part of your new routine. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we can easily abandon that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a push back a little bit on the discipline thing, not because it's not a piece of it. Discipline definitely plays a part. Uh, but I think discipline only goes so far. Discipline handles us and us alone, but we do not live inside of a bubble. And I know I started this season's going to be more internal, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Um, but it's with just discipline, we miss the fact that our lives are a massive interconnected system. And we sit
Mhm,
there and say, okay, well, that's all we need. We just need discipline. And discipline goes very far. Discipline is a huge ordeal. But if you design the system and set the system up in such a way that it just flows effortlessly, discipline's still a piece of it, but it makes that discipline go much further because I'm not
mhm,
sitting there. I'm not worried about. I'll put this into perspective. So I've been biking at least about 20 miles a day, each day, and I have been uh going to kung fu at night. So usually an hour or two on the bike, and then an hour or two of kung fu at night. That's a lot for myself. It's a lot for me at my moderately advanced age. I'll call it that because I don't think of it. I'm old, but I know it. Training like that is not always that.
moderately advanced age.
That was the nicest way of putting that. um, but I have the recovery
Mhm,
set up so perfectly that like, I don't have to worry about it. It's not like I wake up and I'm like, ugh, I don't feel like doing this.
mhm,
No, man, I'm fine. I know I can wake up. I can go sit in a fucking cold tub for 5 minutes, and my muscles will be okay, and I will be able to keep going. They're not sore. They're not like, oh my god, I'm dying. But that's
mhm.
because the whole entire piece of it is just running effortlessly. That's the easiest part of my life right now. I don't know why, but I've been doing that for the past month and a half, and it has been, and I've done things like this, not like this, but pushed it to the max as much as I
Mhm.
can. Um, and a lot of the times I did used to rely on that discipline when I was like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to run every day for 60 days or whatever. And I did. And when I woke up at 4:30 or 3:45 and went running that day, I hated every last second of my life. So that's why I say, you need discipline.
Mhm.
I'm not sitting out here being like, discipline. You don't need that. You definitely do. But when you design your life in such a way that it becomes effortless, that discipline takes you that much further. And it's so much
Yes.
easier to actually accomplish. Right?
Mhm,
And I guess what, um, uh, not, I guess, the things that you were talking about, the post-its, the app, I talked about the whiteboard, if they're not a part of your daily system and not conducive to that system, then again, I can walk by a 3-foot whiteboard with purple writing on it that's bright as fuck and be like, we know what that says. Let's just keep right
yeah.
on moving. And that's problematic. I have not found a one size fits all external tool
Oh, yeah.
that takes everything that I need and just moves it. That's super frustrating because I need that. I follow multiple threads across multiple years of timeline. I need to
Mhm,
have that ability to look back on notes. I need that ability to look back on what was done. And that's a good place for digital tools to kind of creep in and become a force to actually help us out. But not all software is built for my system. They're built for a system. And sometimes you get super, I don't want to say you get super lucky. I'll give you an example. If you use Notion,
No, I've heard of it. I've not used Notion myself. So.
cool. Personally, I can't use it. It doesn't mesh with my system whatsoever. I know it works for a lot of people. No one's they have a wide user base. I would never be like, oh, that tool sucks. It's not the case. It just doesn't work for my system. I have you on my Roam graph, but if you notice, my Roam graph has gotten progressively more and more empty as the days go on. That is not because I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, wait, it's something like, actually, that is true. It's I subconsciously have noticed it, but I never
Right.
put. Huh.
That's because I built my own tool that goes and helps out with all of that. I have, if you look, I know I have to invite you. I don't think, maybe, I know you have a login. I don't know if I've given that to you yet. But that's okay. We'll get there. Not a big deal. That's just a side tangent for our logistics later.
Yeah.
Why not? Perfect timing. But
Look,
that's what, two things in there. And I don't want to get too deep into it because maybe we won't get in there.
no, I was gonna say and going back, I think the reason why posting and some of these things work, they work. It's not that they don't work.
Yeah,
They work
certainly.
for you and I because our system isn't built like that. I think my system is more of an internal thing. I tend to remember everything with 95% accuracy. It doesn't mean things don't get slipped down the thing. So it really, all I need is my mind and make certain association, and I can just kind of work that way. So sometimes when I write the things down, it actually disturbs the system rather than enhances my system. So because sometimes I'm feeling overburdened and I misattribute it to maybe it's poor planning or whatever's going on. And then I try to make a certain change that's not really aligned within my system. And then I will follow it for a couple days, weeks, even months sometimes. But I don't feel any relief. I'm like, I'm doing this thing that is supposed to be helping me, but I feel better. And then that easily allows me to, I can go, okay, I'll skip it for one day. One day becomes 2 days. 2 days becomes, I completely abandon the whole thing altogether.
Exactly. Yeah, you abandon the habit. If, again, we run on habit. Everything, if I really look at my lifetime, unless I actively spent time changing it, I've been doing the same thing for most of my life. And I would venture out to say that that's the same for most people. Not everybody. I'm acknowledging that there are, but at some point in time, even if it doesn't look the way that it did, it's because you intentionally set out to change that in some way, shape, or form. That was in fact shaped by the experiences that you had at that time. I don't care. I'm not going into an explanation of that. It is a big deal to have those tools that work out. I will tell you, just because we're on the topic of Post-it notes, there is a point that I use Post-it notes that makes sense for my system. When I'm at work, I put Post-it notes at the bottom of my computer when there's something that I have to do that day. But if it carries on further than a day, it's done. It's over.
See,
It
and
makes no difference.
and I've used post-it notes effectively when I was applying to
Hmm.
schools. Because what I did was put a checklist because you're applying to 20 schools. So sometimes it's hard to keep. You're like, wait, which one have I already completed? Which one have I not completed the documents for? So having
Hmm.
that little checklist, I can just go, okay, I've done for the school check, and then that way I can go down the list and until I'm done.
Hmm.
Versus typically that wouldn't work for me because I
Hmm.
already know what I want in here. I just gotta have to go and do it. So sometimes writing down the task doesn't really mean anything, at least to a person like me, because the
Hmm.
decision is still open. I've not done anything. I've just wrote it down. What's up with that? I haven't done the actions that I've taken haven't really led to any resolution, and I think sometimes that's where when people try to do these things, the action doesn't lead to a resolution. It's just an intermediate. Sometimes you're just mainly vocalizing the thing. What actions and plans have you put in place to make that thing happen? Because if you don't have that foresight,
Hmm.
you're just kind of circling around.
Right. And so it kind of brings up this question of when you try to get rid of something, what I don't get rid of. I don't like that. That's not a good.
When you try to
When
change
you try to
something,
offload it, yeah, because maybe you're not at changing yet. It typically will lead to some sort of change. It can, but it doesn't have to. But when you're trying to offload thoughts or offload processes, whatever you're thinking about, what actually tells you that it's gone? Uh, just to give you an example, I downloaded something on I have tools on my computer that tells me how much of the CPU is being used, how much RAM, whatever. Sometimes, not always. The and it's usually more for working memory than it is for uh, processing power. But
mhm,
my RAM will be at like 15% and I'll open up some process and it'll start running and it'll jump up to 75 and I'll close out the app, but the RAM usage will still be staying at 85% or whatever
yeah,
because those processes are still running in the background.
wow,
It's not, it's typically for the CPU. It, um, closes out pretty quickly, which is kind of interesting. I know, what was I? Oh, I was looking at the roam graph, man. And when I look at the roam graph, dude, my CPU shoots up sky high. I have to actually go in and kill those processes because if not, it'll
mm,
keep trying to render that graph. And we operate in the same fashion. If we don't effectively offload it, because with those with both of those examples, it got offloaded. I closed out the tab. I closed out the application that was running that process. However, the computer kept running the rendering
mhm,
of them. But if I go into the activity manager on my computer, I can go in, physically kill those processes and make sure that they are gone. That's what we are talking about is how
mhm,
do we physically go in there and make sure that those processes are being killed? Because if not, then it's not leaving, it's just moving to a different location, right? Um, think about it. I'm trying to it's like, okay, so I'm gonna use this, and I'm not attacking again. So if I'm in a psychotherapy session and I sit there and I'm like, well, these people are just a bunch of douchebags and blah, 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 but I have no desire to do anything about it.
mhm,
All I did was move that thought process from one place to another. I went and I shared it with one other person. And so now that other person has the information, but it's not going to leave me. It's still going to stick with me because I'm not doing anything about it.
yeah,
And I know that makes it seem like you have to be doing something about it, but it's not. That's not the case. Um, at least with that, in that specific sense, that would require intention. I would have to have
Mhm.
the intention of moving beyond. I sit there and I talk about it and I'm like, actually processing, not just going through the motion.
Mhm.
Um, and can be one of those places where everything stalls and everything
Mhm.
stops
Mhm.
because that's nothing more than a movement. That's not actually setting it off or
Mhm.
sending it off. And that intention is big behind there. If I just have to remember this and put it on a post-it note and slap it on the wall or on a whiteboard or whatever. Well, my intention behind that was strictly to remember it. There
Mhm.
wasn't any action plan behind it. There wasn't any whatever. And so in order to go about and mm, do something useful with that information or to close that loop from running, I have to go beyond remembering in theory. Um, we do this with computers all the time. We log into a digital life. That digital life becomes an extension of us. When we close out our digital life, it doesn't always just go away. It's like, oh man, well, Jazzy P and the E Street peoples came and said some nasty comment on my Instagram.
That's not where I thought that was going.
No one ever sees it coming. Oh man. But that's exactly it. Just because I write down a task and I say, oh, I have to remember this, there's still a decision that's attached to that. There's still other pieces that are attached. And this is why I say this is where designing that system is so important, because if I write down, and I'm just going to use a post-it note as an example because it's easy. If I sit there and I put a post-it note there and I say, I need to make a decision on this in the next 2 hours, that changes my relationship to that post-it note. So yes, I've just offloaded it. Okay. But then the second that I walk over, I grab it, boom, done. We're good.
Wow. You actually just made me had a realization that the reason why the post-it with the school work is I already made the decision. I already knew what I was going to do. I was merely going in and checking that everything for that thing is done. I've already made the plan that these 20 schools I need to do X, Y, and Z for all of them. And that was all in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just, once I've done it, I go and just reference that, yes, check, I can cross that off my list of things while and then move on to the next
Mm-hmm.
school. It actually, that's really, see, I'm having that realization
Yeah.
as we speak right here, because sometimes I'm like, why doesn't writing these things gotta work? And sometimes I'm like, because I'll have these experiences, one-off experiences where it does work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, why isn't it working the other times? And that's perfect because
Mm-hmm.
I've I've already the times that it's not working is I'm just merely writing it down and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, okay, now I got to figure out how to do this. So then it just becomes more of a burden. I don't like that word, but it becomes more like burden to
Yeah.
that
It
then
becomes a
really
weight. Yeah.
yeah, then really in addition versus when I've already made the decision or I have a timeline and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
boom, I need to do this within the next thing and I'm looking at it, it's
Right.
getting done.
Right. It is the intention behind everything is super important. We can move away from sticky notes. That's okay. Um, if my intention behind recording a thought is, oh, I'll get back to this later, I might get back to it later. I might not, because what happens is life takes hold and it comes down the pipe. I'll use my example from last week, the basement floods. And that there's not a maybe. That basement flooding, it demands my attention. I have to do
Mhm.
cleanup. I have to get a massive fan to dry everything so that we don't end up with mold. There that that occurrence leads to an entirely different chain of events other than the ones that I was just concerned about doing when I said, oh, it's okay, I'll get to it later.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that competing attentional hierarchy, chances are I might come back to it. And that's not, again, that's not a problem per se, unless it's something really important that you need to do that you weren't paying any attention to, or that you weren't prioritizing in the right way. This is why I have my system set up the way that I do, because I get a morning email every single day with what is still open on the things that I
Mhm.
have to do. And I get to see them and I get to say, okay, well, we're moving towards this. This is relying upon this. This is relying upon this and this. And I get to prioritize the
Mhm.
day based off of what I've got going on right there. Perfect. That works. But that was a system that was intentionally built and intentionally designed based off of how I work, my current workflows, how that operates. And I personally don't waste my time tracking everything because I'm not good at that. We are not good at having, and this is across the board with with attention, across the board, we are not good at sustaining attention across multiple different projects or multiple different tasks. I need a system in order to be able to do that. But every time that I go ahead and I add one more thing onto it, that's too much. If I do anything, I pop into my AI that I run on my old computer and I'm like, hey, just go update my task list over here. And boom, done. Wonderful. Super easy. I don't have to worry about it. But that's a system that works for me.
Mhm.
That's those things. When I write those things down, I know they're coming back. I know that they're going to show up on that list every morning and I'm going to be able to make my decisions every morning based off of what gets sent. And sometimes I get surprised, like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Because that's how we are. We do not have the mm, don't have the same recall that a computer is going to have.
Mhm.
Um, a
Oh yeah,
computer
yeah.
can run multiple separate processes and all, and we do, but a lot of our processing is taped up, taken up by biological processes. That's a huge piece of our running.
That's like it's not that we when I think of that, because yes, there's biological processing that's happening with the brain. I think it's just a computer, just plain simply, is more to process more information rapidly
Mhm,
than a human brain. It's just factually accurate. Like a person can speed talk, and you can, even if you are, but you can understand every single word, but like it's gonna
mhm,
take you a minute to process every single thing. Well, a computer can take it and process it and also do 5,000 other tasks at the same time. Well, your brain, you're just like, okay, let me try to remember every single thing that this person just said. Well, the computer can do that and do simultaneously other things as well.
mhm. I it is important to understand our limitations, and those are just overarching ones. But then I have limitations. You have different limitations than I have. People use calendars. I don't use calendars. I don't. The only time I use a calendar is when there's something random that and it's only for randomized meetings, but most of the time I know that they're there. And then when I wake up every day, I have a bullshit template calendar up, but I don't waste my time fixing it. It's not detailed and I don't follow it very often. I, I I use it to get a general idea of what I want my day to look like.
Mhm.
And then after that, and make it up from there. And it works. I don't understand why that works, but I know it doesn't. It's not going. It never could. But that's my system. That's what makes me operate in that efficient manner. So again, I came in. I said, "All right, this is what I need. I need a place to just like drop in one-offs, and then I'm going to design everything else to be." Think of it like modular, but it's not modular. I guess it is. It's piece by piece. I, when I doesn't matter. I think of building blocks. I don't know why. It makes no difference. God dang it! It is modular. I just don't know.
No, no, I think it's you and I have. Sometimes we get hung up on a word that
Uh-huh.
sometimes we try to focus on it, but when you think, but you're like, yes, it's the right word. Maybe just
Yeah.
because I have certain feelings toward that word doesn't necessarily mean the context that I'm talking about it does not. It's not effective or getting the point across.
Yep. No. Yeah. It's
Well, see,
it's
it's
interesting.
because we understand that words have meaning and slightly different meanings that can give slight different interpretation. I think that's where it comes from.
Well, and especially given that I've been sitting here talking about intention. Intention cares what words you use
Yeah.
because again, I'll get back to it later. And oh, I'm going to come back from lunch and I'm going to take care of this exactly, and I'm not going to worry about it. That intentional shift literally is going to determine whether that what note that I saved or whatever is going to be there or not. The other thing is, and I guess I kind of alluded to it, but I didn't exactly talk about it. Sometimes the system that is around you requires more of you. I've been using room research for the past, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. I don't know. I've been using it since grad school, and I got out of grad school in 2022, but I was using it during grad school too. So whatever, 5, 6 years,
And
something like that.
I know definitely since 2023. I know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
for a
oh
fact.
yeah, no, definitely. But I was using it when I was in grad school as well. And it was great when I needed it. When I was using
Hmm.
it, I never had any problem. But nowadays, things just got more complex and more complicated. The things going on around me require more than what it could offer. And so that's what led me to go ahead and build my own tool. But we have to remember that the, it, I don't want to say if we're doing it right, because that implies that people could be doing it wrong. But if I'm if I'm actively trying to get better each and every day, then our system is going to grow and it's going to evolve. It's going to become more complex. So it's going to determine different ways, not determine, it's going to dictate that
Mm.
my system, the what I currently have in place, evolve along as well. That goes back with what we were talking about all last season of designing the things in the way that you want,
What?
in the way that is good for you. Um, I don't always love want, but that's okay. It really is what your system wants is the way that you kind of have to set it up and design that in. Understand that. Because again, and I guess this is the thing to think about is when you think about doing things with intention, that is what dictates how we interact with it.
Mhm.
Because the notebook, the post-it, the app, that shit, it doesn't talk back. Some of the most success I've had are with things that have talked back. Like I write automations on my phone sometimes when I need to remember some things. But even at that, after a couple of days, it goes out the window because it tells me the same thing over and over again. It doesn't adapt. It's not adapting to what I need. It it's just there. This is, I guess we'll get into it later in the season, I'm sure, but like how AI fits in with all of this because that everything that we've done in terms of like research over the past whatever generation plus um is geared towards that idea of adaptive tasks. A computer made adapting software to people much easier than a Post-it note or than whatever else. And with AI, we have a much better ability to actually be able to adapt to those specific circumstances a little bit better. I know people in HCI are researching intent-based operating systems or apps and things like that, which shifts landscapes. So we'll definitely take some time on that, but that's going to be later on. I'm not gonna do too much into that right now. I think that's the best thing to do is just to leave you with the reflection now, because I think we've hit a natural end to what we were discussing. There's only so much you can say about that.
That's true.
I one thing I did forget this. I lied, and then we'll get to reflection. Well, because I didn't. It's different. No, not entirely. Whatever. What we did today was we described the things that fail. Correct. We didn't sit there and we didn't highlight what works for you, because we don't know. I don't know you. I can't sit there and say this is going to work for you. It's possible. We have links for that in the description. However, without knowing who's on the other side, there's no real way to do it. But we've definitely done it on ourselves. We know how to optimize those systems. And this season, we are going to be bringing in guests, which is going to be super exciting. And they're going to kind of get to talk about the way that those tools work for them and what they're maybe building, what they're not building, what they're not doing. The world is our oyster at this moment in time. But when you really sit down and think about it, or if you had any momentary thoughts during this episode, just kind of sit back and ask yourself, what's the one thing that you were trying to offload, but is still currently taking up processes in the background. Doesn't have to be a why, doesn't have to be a hard understanding. Just, is there something still running? And I would venture out to say that if you're participating in any modern workflows, you've got quite a bit. I know in my morning email, I get all kinds of good stuff about people running decision loops that never close and all kinds of good things related to modern workflows.
So I want to thank everybody. And as we always end the episode, we do have a session that you can use at the Enactive.com. And I just want to reiterate, if there's one thing that you've handed off, as AJ said, and we've discussed throughout the episode, that is still running. You can feel it. You're like, I'm doing this thing and it's not working. We have one section is built for your specific program, and we work with you to really get you where you need to be. And the link is theenactive.com, which you can find below. Thank you so much. That's the episode.
If something is still ruminating, that's the specific thing one Enactive session is built for. The session link is at theenactive.com.
If it was worth your time, subscribe. New episode every week for this season.
And there is a question waiting for you in the comments. Answer it if you feel so inclined.
We read them.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.